Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the latest edition of Free Thought Hour. This is a show where we have my co-host and I interviewing a guest. So let's say hello to Tercia first. How the devil are you, Tercia?
I'm good, John. Thank you. I'm doing well. It's cold, and I'm a bit nervous because my son got himself into a boxing match for a serious, real boxing match with gloves and whatnot at a country club. It's a
which
sorry.
son? Which son?
The 21-year-old, the one who can make decisions like that for himself, not Anu.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I hope it goes all right. I hope there's not too much breakage.
Well, so do I. I didn't go along because I don't want to see that I'm not a fan of violent sports.
No.
John, did you watch the rugby last night? I have to ask. Did you watch the rugby last night? Darn.
You know I'm not into rugby. No.
And you should get into rugby. It's World Cup. Come on, John. Come on. But let's move on to more important things. We have a guest to talk to tonight.
We do. And here he is. Josh, how the devil are you?
I'm doing very well today. It's good to be here.
Good. Oh, well, welcome. Yeah. So the reason we've got you here, Josh, is because you've got a very interesting story. You've gone on a journey, and we want to hear about your journey. And you've gone against the flow. I've got to say it's against the flow because most of the travelers on this road are going the other way.
Yes.
So would you like to tell us a bit about how Josh Dohey got to be the person he is today? You can start right at the very beginning and take us through your life story.
Well, I was born in 1993 in May, and born into a Christian family.
Yeah.
And I was, they raised me Christian as I grew older into my teen years. After the death of my aunt, especially, I started to move very far, very fast, and very militantly away from God. I was not a fan of him or his followers. I thought it was completely asinine.
Can I stop you there? Because I want to pick up on a few things. What flavor of Christianity were you brought up in? Because there's about, 30,000 different sects or denominations. And Tercia was in the Calvinist one, or she saw dark. And that, of course, is one of the more fundamental, one of the more stringent, Protestant, austere, that's the word I'm thinking of, sects, isn't it? What was yours like?
Mine was also stricter. We went to several different churches, some less strict, some more. But I was brought up non-denominational, but in a very, definitely one of the more stricter sects of non-denominationalism, excuse me. But I've seen all sorts of churches, over the years, even as an atheist, sometimes I'd have a Christian friend. They keep bugging me to go to church with them. I'd cave, but never really felt anything from any of them until I recently became a Christian, not very long ago.
Yeah. So what was it back in those days that, because you said you thought the whole thing was asinine and it was a quick transformation. What did that? What was the stimulus?
Well, the death of my aunt definitely is what got the ball rolling there.
Yeah.
And then after that, obviously I study science and that sort of thing, and I see people wanting to do stuff in the USA, like ban gay marriage, ban abortion, teach creationism in schools. So there was a very political motivation for my atheism, because I thought, Christianity is doing harm in the world, and
That's
I
yeah.
carried that banner for many, many years.
Yeah, that's how you saw it then. So here comes the interesting bit. You went into hospital. I won't inquire about the condition, your treatment or your medical condition, unless you want to tell us about that, because I've been in hospital too. We could swap operation natter.
Yes. That's actually probably a pretty big part of my coming to God was just how severe my condition was, and how close I was to meeting him. I almost died in there. Before I went in, I was coughing up blood. I had a really sharp pain in my right of my chest that felt like someone was twisting a knife in it. And so I go to Westmoreland Hospital, and to make a long story short, I had pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot in your lung. Undiagnosed, that's about 30% chance of death, but I didn't just have one blood clot. I had 3 pretty moderately sized blood clots in there, along with necrotic tissue. So part of my right lung had actually died. So and I had also, taken my time to go to the hospital. I do not like being in hospitals.
Nope.
I do not like seeing my own blood taken from me. I don't like any of that.
Right.
So I had a very, very high chance of just dying from heart failure. My right side of my heart wouldn't be able to pump blood because of the blockage from the blood clots. Is what I would have died from.
Well, it's a good job you turned up at the hospital in that case, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So you were admitted through A&E, I presume, and then they operated, did they? Because I had a long time ago now. I had open heart surgery. Do you want to see my scar?
Only if you care to show it.
I'm teasing. It's almost invisible. It is almost invisible. They're so good at cutting and sticking back together these days. You almost need a microscope to see it, and it's not because my chest is that hairy, but honestly, they've done a good job. So I hope they
incredible.
did the same to you.
Yes, well, luckily they didn't have to open me up. Once I got there, what they did is they gave me an IV direct into my veins. It's a blood thinner called Eliquis to thin out the clots so that they can pass out of my lung and break up and not kill me. But so once that was started, everything was good. But up until that point, everyone was like, all the doctors, the pulmonologists, everyone, they were just looking at me like, how is this guy alive?
So they didn't have to remove the necrotic tissue in your lung?
No, they said that will likely scar over.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, there you go. Tercy,
Can I,
Yeah.
don't you feel out of it, Tercy? You've not had, major surgery.
well, I actually, I was listening very carefully, and firstly, Josh, I'm really happy that you are still with us, and
Thank you.
I'd like to ask for two things. How's your health nowadays? Do you have any residual effects of your trauma, and how long ago exactly was this medical trauma that you had?
It was about I want to say about a month and a half ago. And they still have me taking Eliquis twice a day. I'll be done with that in about roughly a month and a half. And I still have a little bit of residual pain in the lung, but it's definitely lessened considerably since I was admitted to the hospital.
Okay, so it's a recent traumatic experience that you had, and I don't want to go into the details too much, but I have my own story. My first pregnancy at 32 weeks, I had what is called an abruptio placenta, which means that the placenta detaches from the uterus, and that causes internal bleeding. And it's very common unless the mother, unless something happens and the woman begins to bleed outwardly, then women often they hemorrhage and they just lose too much blood and they die, and the baby obviously too. And in my case, things just so happened that I got to hospital in time, and I made it. And my baby
You're not a ghost.
I'm not a ghost, not as far as I know. And on top of that, not only did I survive, my daughter survived. She's 22 today, a beautiful young girl. She was in ICU for 10 days. She was basically she was in graver danger than I was. She had a heartbeat of 20 beats per minute, and which for a newborn,
Yes.
I mean, it should be about 160 is normal for
Yes.
them. And
Yes.
and she had, there's a scale, the APGAR scale. I don't know if you're aware of it, but they look at 5 characteristics, and each one is scored out of 2. And a normal APGAR is 7. Anything between 5 and 7 is not good. So hers was 1, and she had 1 out of 10 because she had that very faint heartbeat. And normally girls seem to be tougher than little baby boys. And she was premature. I mean, this was 32 weeks, so it's 6 weeks premature. So I've had my own medical emergency. And
well, let me see now. Does heart surgery trump that, or are you do you have the strongest hand here?
I think I have, because there's 2 of us. I mean, there were 2. It's not just me.
Oh,
and
okay.
Imagine.
She has a point.
Yes.
Absolutely. Imagine my husband. He stood in the theater, and he saw his wife, who was supposed to only go into labor 6 weeks in hence, and his firstborn being basically. Yes. So I didn't experience much trauma because I was anesthetic, but my husband did, and it was a traumatic experience. If you think you're going to be pregnant for another 6 weeks and then suddenly you have a little baby, premature, but having said that, no, there's no trumping, there's no trauma competitions. Trauma is trauma, and people experience it differently.
You've definitely won this round of medical poker,
and I'm happy that that you're both here, and Teresa, that your kids are all right, and yeah.
I went on to have 2 healthy. Well, I don't know how healthy they are. The one is out boxing tonight. So how healthy is that? But in any case, the thing that interests me about your story, Josh, and I can relate to it in many ways, because I was told by the doctors, by the pediatrician, by the gynecologist, by the nursing staff, that both my baby and I were living miracles, because by all reasonable standards, both of us should have not made it. And on top of that, my daughter is she's not disabled. She's normal. So we really, despite the circumstances, and I was still very religious at the time that this happened. And even as a religious person, I felt uncomfortable with the idea of a miracle, and the main reason is I was still in hospital with my daughter. She was in ICU, and she was about a week old, and I had to go every 3 hours. I would extract milk, and every 3 hours I would go, and she would get a feeding of 10 milliliters or 5 milliliters. And one morning, it was 3:00 in the morning, I went to give her milk, and I could see the nurses. No, it was 12:00, and the nurses were all running about, and I could see that. And one nurse said they're preparing for a little baby boy, full-term baby, whose mother had the same condition that I had. And I went there at 3, and he was in the bed right next to my daughter, and I could see that he was not looking well. But you know what? And 6:00, when I went for the next feed, that little bed was empty, and he had died. And the thought that the idea of miracles, what troubles me is why does God, why did he spare my child and me, but he didn't spare that little boy? And that's the question that I have, that bothers me, because as I don't know if you're a parent, I don't know if you have kids.
I'm not a parent.
So I have,
no, not
I
yet.
have 3. John has 4, and the whole idea
Never
of
have
saving.
children. Never have children. Never have children.
That's
Listen
what
to John.
everyone keeps telling me that.
Listen to
Should
the
I be
wise old
concerned that my
man.
mom tells me that I'm an only child?
So
Yeah.
I want to ask you whether it bothers you at all that does God seem to you like he has favorites? Because as a mother, as a parent, I would never favor one of my kids over the other. And this whole idea of a miracle to save one person's life, but others, does it bother you at all? How do you think about that?
Well, I do understand. That's actually one of the things that I was asking in my conversion, because you know, I was like, say I were in God's shoes, right? I can just go around saving or smiting as I see fit. I'm like one of the top of the list of people that I would smite. You know, like I'd be throwing a fireball at me.
Why? What did you do to deserve that? I'm curious. Can you tell us, or would you have to kill us after?
Oh
That's
no,
when you
just
were an atheist, I
being.
assume.
I'm sorry.
That's when you were an atheist, I assume.
Well, sort of. Well, what was happening is afterwards I was asking, because it did feel like a miracle. It did feel like I beat the odds, and I was going, "Why me? I've been constantly trying to, verbally tear apart Christians and Christianity, the Christian faith, blaspheming your name." And I got saved, and I was like having a mental crisis of, you know what I mean? Like, really, why me of all people? Like, there are a million more deserving people. And
You had a
It just
mixture of.
kind of hit me, quit stressing about why you were saved, in the physical sense.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, if you don't want this gift, you have free will. You can always go jump off a bridge. Now, as to why some of these other things happen, like newborns dying, that sort of thing, I I don't actually know why some people get saved and not others. Um, and I
So
wish I did.
yeah, it's a difficult question. So you had a sort of a mixture of survivor's guilt and imposter syndrome, did you?
Yeah, define imposter syndrome.
Well, it's when you're given a role that you don't think you can carry off.
Yes, I didn't think. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the last person, if I were God, that I would want walking around talking and
Mm.
telling people about him and doing
I'm
interviews.
I'm curious about that. I want to get back to that. So maybe the next question I want to ask would answer that. How are you a different person in terms of how you treat people in general since your conversion? Um,
Um, if we're talking about Christians, then yes.
okay,
But
so were you mean to Christians before your conversion?
um, mean might be a bit strong. I was adamantly opposed to them, to their
Okay,
faith, to their belief.
Hmm.
okay.
I wasn't mean, like I wouldn't go and beat them up and steal their lunch money or, you know, spit at them
That's
or
good to hear.
call them names or something, but I'm just, I would call them intellectually dishonest and, you know, tell them that they're not being academic by this belief or that belief, that sort of thing. In terms
Okay.
of everyone else, I don't feel like I'm treating them any better or worse.
Interesting.
I've always tried to be kind, respectful to people as an atheist or a Christian. It's just part of being a good person, in my opinion.
Okay, that's
I,
interesting.
I, I agree with that.
Yeah, but what's interesting about it is how little an impact be- finding Jesus seems to have had on you.
Oh well, that's just talking about how I treat people. Like I said, no matter if I was a Christian or atheist, I'd always try to be a good person. But
Mm.
sorry about that. Matthew's calling me actually. Um, where was I? I always try to be a good person, but I do feel an effect in my life. Uh, one a guy like me lands into the hospital because he doesn't take care of himself. Uh,
Mm.
I smoke too much. I drink too much. I've experimented with, drugs in my college years. I don't exercise regularly enough. I
Mm.
was really there as of my own making, and I do that sort of stuff a lot less. And I used to be a lot more depressed, suicidal at times,
Oh,
as an atheist. And that depression and those suicidal ideations are definitely less than what they were.
I see. Okay.
So I
So,
would say it's
oh,
had quite a big impact on my life.
right, from a point rather than from your behavior. you feel more stable than you did previously as a personality. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I seem like I think I lost the audio.
Yeah, I think that there's a connection going wrong here somewhere, isn't there? Because we're hearing bits of you and you're hearing bits of us, I think. Yeah. So I'll try a different question, see if that gets across. It seems to me that both your deconversion from Christianity to atheism and your reconversion from atheism back to Christianity came about as a result of events. It was your aunt's death in the first case and your unexpected miraculous survival from a catastrophic health condition in the second case. So this seems to me something that it might be causal, but it isn't epistemic, if you see what I mean. It doesn't explain why you changed from A to B. It was a trigger, but not a reason to make that particular journey.
Well, um, like I explained, after the death of Danielle, my aunt, that's when I really started questioning God, moving away, because in my mind, it was how can God do this to, I was a young, practically boy. How can God do this to such a kind soul? And, how could he be real if he's all powerful and allowing this to happen? Was my logic with that one.
Yes. So at that point, you presumably began to doubt his existence.
Yes. Yes. And then, like I said, it became eventually linked to politics, which only furthered my my anti-religious fervor.
And you got science and started to study aspects like evolution or non-creation. You mentioned that you were against the religious concept of creationism.
Back when I was an atheist, I very much was, but well, I kind of do it for a living now. Intelligent design
Really?
and evolution.
Well, tell me
what
about
I do.
That.
What I do for a living is I breed shrimp, and
yes.
So really, I think all schools should have a shrimp tank, because they are absolutely great to learn about evolution. Because I can play around with it and affect it. Say a shrimp's best parameters are pH of 7.5. If you want me to get that down to 7.0 or up to 8.0 for their ideal parameters, it'll take some time. I need to breed them to get to those parameters for several generations.
Yep.
And eventually, they're good. They're there. So that's evolution in work, but I am the intelligent designer affecting it.
Yes. I see what you're talking about. It's what you have done there is artificial selection. Now, what evolution is about, of course, is natural selection without an agent, without a you doing it by choosing the shrimps, putting them together, altering the environment. Evolution is not about that. It's about nature doing it, not any agent at all.
Well, then what do you consider an invasive species? Is that natural or artificial selection?
Well, are you talking about an introduced species or a naturally invasive one? Because, for example, in England, here where I am, we are currently getting some species crossing the channel that we never used to have in this country. There's a hornet that was common in France, and I think last year 3 specimens were identified here, and this year it's gone up to 11. So that's natural invasion due to climate change, because they're finding we're not too cold anymore, here. But that's different from introductions, because of course, once we got mobile, mankind went about the world and we plucked species from here, took them to there, and we've introduced rabbits to Australia, the cane toad to Australia, where they don't have any predators. They've eaten everything, run amok, consumed all the vegetation, and we've had to control them. And again, this is by human intervention, but left alone, things still change, and that's nature. That's evolution.
Yes.
Joshua, I want to move a little bit away from that issue and ask you, what would you tell somebody like me, who is exactly the opposite to you? So I spent the first 40 years of my life deeply, devoutly religious, and I would have never even thought of questioning God for things that happened. I was taught up and believed wholeheartedly that everything that happens is God's will, whether it's good or bad, and we just have to find peace in God's will, and I have no right to question God as a human being. So when bad things happened, I would have never even considered deconverting because of something bad happening to someone or something that I loved, because I would have just accepted that it is my lot as a child of God. He can smite me whenever he wants to. And now I deconverted, and what got me to deconvert was the errors in the logical so-called logic doctrines, because I just there were just too many things that didn't make sense to me any longer. And once I was introduced to the internet and other atheists, and I realized, you probably won't be smitten if you won't be smited. What is the word? Smote?
Smited.
You won't be smote.
Smote.
Smite, smitten, smoted.
Oh.
So what would you say to somebody like me, who is exactly the opposite to you? So I
would say to someone like you, to me, it sounds like you felt when you were deeply religious, like you had a gun to your head almost, metaphorically speaking, in the form of a smiting.
Well, I didn't feel like it at the time. I believed that God loved me dearly. I knew that He would punish me if I, like my parents would. I mean, I grew up in quite a strict household. We were my parents believed in corporal punishment. They didn't beat us often, but we knew that we could get a beating if we were disobedient, and they were very loving. But we knew that we would be corporally punished, and I saw God in exactly the same way, and I felt about God the same way that I felt about my parents. So I wasn't afraid of my parents, and I never, but I knew that I had to keep my actions had to be right. And the reason that I was taught, and I believed this, was you do the right thing because God loves you. You don't do the right thing so that God doesn't punish you. You just, when you are chosen by God and you believe in Him, then you have the ability to do the right thing, and therefore you do the right thing because God chose you.
See, for me, I was never incredibly worried about. I mean, God's punishment. Like right now, like I smoked a cigarette before I came on the show. I don't think God is necessarily going to punish me for it. I don't think it made him happy, but I don't look at him as some guy uh, who is big on interfering and punishing people. Um, like I don't feel like there's maybe not a gun to my head, but like he's got his belt in his hand.
But how do you look at God? Would you mind telling us, how do you look at God? How do you see God? Does he communicate to you? How does that work exactly?
I view God, and the reason I won't reject him is because I view him kind of like a pacemaker, if you will, that is in my heart, keeping me alive. Like, I was given a second chance. I feel like almost by rejecting him, I'm throwing that away, you know?
Were you, though? Because, Tercia, when you were successfully dealt with at your hospital, who did you credit with that?
Well, I believe that God had worked it so that I got to the hospital on time, and that the doctor was there, and that the anesthetist was there. So I suppose I credited God ultimately, but primarily the doctors and the modern technology. And to me, in my mind, there wasn't a distinction between the two. God enabled the doctors, and therefore it was God, you know. So that's how I saw it as a Christian.
Right. Well, the thing I want to ask about is, Josh, you said that you don't think your God is harsh on punishment. He's not there trying to catch people out and give a sanction for some naughty deed that they done that he doesn't approve of. But he does save people. So he seems to be very benevolent and not very just, if you see what I mean. He's not meting out any bad sanctions. He's just giving out the good stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, my experience with him has been overwhelmingly positive.
But why? I mean, you've already expressed some disbelief about you being saved, because you said you were blaspheming and you were probably the last person who deserved to have a miracle worked on him. So what is the reasoning behind this? How have you got what are you special?
I don't think I'm special.
What about all these children that are born with defects then? Why are they not being treated more benevolently?
You know, I wish I had the answer to that. I really do. But I can't speak for God. I'm not a prophet. All I know is what happened to me. And you know, if I were God, I would trade. I would have probably chosen to save those kids, like I said, because I don't feel like I was particularly worthy, especially to the Christian God of all gods.
Yeah. So he's being selective, then, isn't he? With very weird criteria. I mean, he's saved you, but not them. Which is the more deserving? Well, you don't think you're deserving, and yet they are innocent children with a lifetime ahead of them. So it seems to me a peculiarly whimsical sort of God that you're worshipping.
Well, definitely. I do believe God has a plan, but I do not profess to know it.
Right. So do you pray?
I feel like perhaps he saved me because there's something he wants me to do, maybe I live another 20 years and I save a little girl from drowning and then I die.
Yes. So do you pray?
Do I pray?
Do you pray?
Yes, I do pray.
Do you? So you pray for something to happen, do you?
I pray that whatever he wants to use me for, that he is able to, and that I am able to be used by him, able to accomplish whatever feat would or whatever to bring glory to his name.
And how do you know? How would you know? So let's say you now pray the prayer that God uses you to bring glory to his name. But let's say that in Europe, how do you know what would bring glory to God's name? I mean, David had to slaughter 200 Philistines and take their foreskins to Saul. And that was a glorification of God's name. There's some other curious examples of things that people had to do to glorify God's name. So how, in a given situation, let's say you come upon a robbery taking place and you see a person with a gun and it looks like he's robbing another person, how do you know who to step in and save? Because maybe the person with a gun who seems to be doing the robbery is actually very important in God's plan, because he has to one day kill somebody who was going to grow up to be Hitler. And now you've just killed the wrong person because you killed the person who was conducting a robbery because you wanted to save the life of the person who was being robbed. How do you know what God wants in situations?
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Richards.
I was just going to say you would need to know what would glorify him beforehand, before you prayed for his use of you towards glorification, wouldn't you?
Well, let me answer the first scenario from Tercia. In that situation, I'm going to go off of the first commandment, thou shalt not kill, and try to work that somehow into my into that scenario. And to answer your question, Professor Richards, hopefully God doesn't tell me to go slaughter people and collect their foreskins and bring them somewhere. I don't know if I'm prepared for that, but I guess that was still part of what Tercia was saying. But
yeah, that's interesting, because it tells me that you have morals that might be better than your God's, because there are certain things he could command you to do that you would resist obeying.
Well, I don't agree with that, but bringing glory to God's name can be a simple thing, feed a stray cat. You're loving one of his creatures.
Then I'm bringing glory to God's name every day, because I've got 4 stray cats in my house. I'm an little. I'm bringing glory to God's name every day.
You are. Because it
Tessie has
says that,
4 halos.
all the creatures of the land sing glory to God's name, so you are keeping them alive so that they can keep doing that.
I just why does God need to be glorified all the time?
Um,
Does
well,
he
I
have
guess he
low,
just enjoys it.
does he have low self-esteem? Creating a universe wasn't an achievement enough.
Josh, I just want to say that I'm not asking these questions so much as trying to get you to answer them, because I don't think you could answer them, and I appreciate your honesty in saying, well, you just guess. He just likes to be praised, and I'm hoping that anybody listening now or in future realizes that I don't think John is either. We're definitely not trying to catch you out or put you in any difficult situation. And that's the crux that I actually want to drive to. Because you, Josh, believe in this God who's almighty, creator of everything, and yet he can't answer these questions. He on the one hand, he desires to be praised 24/7 by every living thing in creation because he enjoys to be praised. But at the same time, he leaves it to somebody like you to explain to us, why does God want to be praised? And doesn't that make you a little bit uncomfortable?
Doesn't everyone want to be praised?
No, I don't want to be praised. Do you?
Well, I'm
definitely
praising
don't.
you. You feed those cats.
Well,
So
I feed those
that's
cats because I
interesting.
want to, and I love cats. That's
That's,
I honestly don't. I think people who demand and desire praise have something wrong. Maybe recognition. We all want appreciation. So I'm a teacher, and I like to know that the work that I do is. But the appreciation is not when children tell me, "Oh, teacher, we like you." My appreciation is when I see that the kids are making progress, and somebody who
yeah,
couldn't do it. That's
yeah.
my appreciation. So
Yes,
I
I
find it
like
odd.
I like getting positive feedback, but I don't
Yeah.
want to be worshipped.
No, not at all. In fact, it would make me really uncomfortable.
Yes, yes. So I want to go back to this prayer thing because, sorry, Josh, you said that you think your God has a plan, and so you do pray, but you only pray. You don't pray to ask anything for yourself. You pray to ask how you might be used by Him for His glorification. So I'm
Yes,
wondering.
I did want to say real quick that God gets joy in watching us progress as well. Like I was saying earlier about I smoke less, I drink less, I'm not out having unprotected sex. That's progress, and that makes him happy too.
Really, I'm worried about that because it
How do you
sounds
know
to me
that?
like
How do you know that makes God happy?
it sounds to me like the closed circuit television in the sky. Is he watching on the toilet?
Is he what?
Watching us on the toilet? The what would you call it in the bathroom?
Well, he sees everything, so yes, but I assure you it's not a perverted type deal.
I'm glad. So, so if he has a plan, and I'm wondering why you bother to pray, because presumably you're not going to alter his plan in any way. So, isn't this a waste of time?
Well, sometimes during prayer, he may reveal a small part of that plan to me. And that
tell us
makes me
about this.
happy.
Tell
You know
us,
what I
wanna
mean?
know.
Like, I might be praying tonight, and he'll say, "Yeah, I kept you alive to save that little girl in 20 years from now."
Well, I want to know, how does he communicate this to you? Is it audible, or is it in the head, or
More
what?
in the head, almost like in epiphanies is how he communicates.
Well, that doesn't tell me anything. I want to know the actual mechanism. Can you hear it, or does it appear in your head like a vision?
Um, uh, think of it as if you were right next to me, you wouldn't be able to hear it, but I would hear it.
Wow, that's amazing.
I just think about, there was a John. I told you about the film "The Gods Must Be Crazy" last week, and in that film, one of the opening scenes, there's this the main character sits in a bar. She works in Johannesburg in the city, and she's a very busy journalist, and she sits in a crowded coffee shop for lunch, and she's really stressed out, and the lady sitting next to her, who she doesn't know, looks at her and says, "Excuse me, can I ask you a question?" And she says, yes. And the person asks her, "Does the noise in my head bother you?" So
Well,
you remind me of that a little bit, Joshua. Does the noise? So would you ask somebody if the noise in your head or the voice in your head is bothering them?
you know,
No, I know they can't hear it. If they can hear it, like if they start looking at me like, "Did you say something?" Then I'm going to ask if it's bothering them.
But
so,
that would be impressive. I would be massively impressed if that would happen.
yeah, I want to come and get some of that. Is it
I've got
words? Is it words? Then? Is it actual words? Is it in English? What is it?
um words, thoughts, sometimes visual.
Why do you
Not like
ascribe it to? Did you get these feelings or experiences before, and why do you ascribe it to God?
uh well, I never uh got them before. Uh it was after I got out of the hospital, after I got anointed, when I was kind of having that survivor's guilt. Uh th- that's when it's first happened, and I know it's God because that's what the voice says, you know.
Have you discussed this
I'm not
with any
going
of your
to double
doctors?
second guess it.
Have you discussed any of this with any of your doctors?
Mm, no, no, I haven't. If anything, I think the doctors would tell me to keep listening to the voice because, like I said, I am living a bit healthier now.
So he gives you dietary advice?
Wait, what?
He gives you dietary advice? How to live healthily?
Um, no, he doesn't give me dietary advice. It's just, it's easier to serve him when you're not drunk and out of breath because you're sinning all the time.
Hmm.
I'm so curious about to hear about these sins. What exactly what do you regard as sin?
Um,
He, he mentioned
sin.
sex, didn't he?
I'm sorry. Say again.
You mentioned unprotected sex.
among many other things. And yeah, that's a Christian belief, sex before marriage and all that other stuff. So, I sinned around. I tried drugs. I drank a lot. I very unhealthy habits, and other things. I was wrathful, especially road rage. No one knows how to drive over here. Um, uh, just stuff like that. Stuff that I shouldn't be doing. That's not good for me. Not good for my blood pressure. Stuff
Right.
that ultimately was ruining my lifespan.
Right.
And
So,
that's not to say that, coveting thy neighbor's wife isn't also a sin, but it really comes in a million forms.
do you eat shellfish?
Not often, but
Do you go to the Red
actually, I don't
Lobster?
think I have in a while.
The
And I
Red
know
Lobster?
that, and I'm wearing clothes of mixed fabrics right now as well. I never claimed to be sinless.
You are very sinful, yes. I think you qualify as a sinner.
Oh, I very much qualify. I could compete in the Sin Olympics.
Mhm. So, what do you think, Tercia? Are you a sinner? Oh, have we lost Tercia? Can we hear you, Tercia? Have you gone silent? I think she's been smoked. Josh, what do you
No,
think?
no. She didn't feed her cats often enough.
Maybe not. No. Yeah. And I don't even have any cats, so I must be really evil.
I've got 2 dogs. What does that tell you about me?
Oh, you're obviously pretty good. I'm sure dogs are a plus.
Oh, they are. I think all dogs go to heaven.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, before humans, because they're much nicer, aren't they? Most dogs.
Oh, they're nicer. They're more loyal,
Yes.
and they're cuter.
Yes, indeed. Yes. So don't have children, but get dogs. There you go.
No, no, no,
I
no.
will take that. If I take nothing else away from this show, it will be that advice.
Yes. Well, you're going to have to take it soon because we're ticking up to the last couple of less than 2 minutes. And I want to say who we've got coming next week before we sign off, because it's Kenneth Krause, who he's an interesting fellow. I can't remember a thing about him at the moment, but I know that I signed him up because he had such an interesting story to tell. So let's look forward to that. Tercia, what do you want to promote? Anything at your end?
Not at this stage. Oh, yes, I do want to promote. Sorry, I forgot. I had an article published in the Skeptic
Yes,
Inquirer,
you
and
did.
I would like everybody to go and check that out. It's about my undercover expose of an African traditional healer. And at 50, I'm very proud of myself. I have to. So maybe we do all want praise, but I'm not like God. I don't want praise. I would just like everybody to read my article. And thank you again to Susan Gerbic, who helped me to get in contact with the right people. Joshua, please go and look on the Skeptic Inquirer. It's an article. I'm a skeptic. I think that's what I called it. And thank you so much to Skeptic Inquirer for allowing me to get a voice and put it out there. That's all I want to promote tonight.
You've dipped your toe into journalism. Well done. And
I
Josh,
wanted to be a journalist, but then God changed the plans.
well, he moves in mysterious ways, so I'm told. So, Josh, thank you very much. You've been a sport. And thank you,
you very
viewers.
much for having me, John.
You're welcome.
Tercia, nice to meet you very
Thank you,
much.
viewers, future viewers as well. I'm going to play your little outro now, Josh. Here we go. If I can find it. Yes, it is. Here we go. Wave goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.